Reeling after a bad 2022 season, the Indianapolis Colts went out and got one of the hottest head coaching candidates in Shane Steichen and paired him up with one of the biggest upside quarterbacks we have ever seen in Anthony Richardson. So how's 2023 gonna go? Well, let's go ahead and talk about it. And what's crack-a-lackin'? It's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know. So go ahead, become a bro and subscribe. Leave this video a thumbs up if you enjoy the content as always. And let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let's have that nice, beautiful football discourse as we continue my deep dive series with the Indianapolis Colts. And this is going to be a fun one. It really, really is. We're going to be talking about the coaching staff, the scheme. We'll get into the roster, and then we'll talk about my prediction for the 2023 season for these Colts. But yeah, I guess let's go ahead and get into this sucker with the coaching staff as they hired Shane Steichen to be their head coach after having a phenomenal season as the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. We saw how he developed Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts having that massive breakout season. And it's not just Jalen Hurts, because for 6-7 seasons, he was with the Chargers, working under the guys like Mike McCoy, and then he was under Ken Wisenhunt for a little bit, which was under that like Anthony Lynn coaching staff, or where he was the head coach. But he had a small stint in 2020 when they had Justin Herbert. It might be the funnest Justin Herbert ever looked. Hopefully things changed there with Kellen Moore there, but yeah, no, he has a history of making these young quarterbacks and making them look good. And I think that's going to be really good when you pair him up with the OC and Jim Bob Cooter, coming from the Jaguars last season where he was the passing game coordinator. Also, he's a guy that was he was the Eagles consultant in 2021. So he's worked with Steichen. And you go back to his days as a quarterback coach and offensive coordinator with the Detroit Lions, as he was able to help Matthew Stafford kind of have that. That was kind of the sweet spot in his career. Obviously, I guess the best part of Matthew Stafford's career was winning that Super Bowl. But arguably, you could say those final years in Detroit, or those like prior 6 seasons, were some of the best football Stafford ever played. So I love that pairing. What to expect from this offense is, well, it's a spread offense. This offense ran RPO more than any other team in the league. And when you pair that with Anthony Richardson, oh my gosh, it's tantalizing. Last season, the Eagles were among the top in designed quarterback runs. This is a team that loves to set up the play action and whatnot. They love early downs to try to get those quick, easy yards. They're not afraid of the run game, and you got Jonathan Taylor. I mean, I already want to talk about this offense because it's very exciting, but also it's very good passing concepts in this with this offense. So they really like to attack all levels of the field. They want to challenge downfield, take those occasional shots. So I'm very excited about this offense. If you're not new to the channel, I'm not the biggest Gus Bradley fan. I'm willing. I just think Gus Bradley is a very mid defensive coordinator, and that might not be a popular opinion. I just feel like he is someone who you can easily plan for. He really is. So he comes from the Monty Kiffin coaching tree, where Monty Kiffin went to freaking. He would beat on the table, be like, "Hey, this is one of the best defensive minds I have ever mentored." That legitimately, that's words out of Kiffin's mouth. That's how Bradley made it there in Seattle. And since then, I don't think he's really been that impressive as a DC. With the Raiders, I thought he wasn't that good. Last season with the Colts, they had a solid defense, but still, he's a bit predictable. Man, this guy, he's never gonna blitz. He's consistently going to be at the bottom of the league, if not the bottom in terms of how often he blitzes. That's just him. He wants to win with his front four. He wants to win with stunts and a variety of different movement up there with the defensive front. And when it comes to his coverage, not much is changing either. This dude's running cover 3. He's running cover 3. He's part of that Seattle cover 3. I mean, you'll see occasionally, you'll see press, you'll see off coverage, but it's like that is Gus Bradley to a freaking T. And it surprised me that they decided to keep that. He was the one part that they decided to keep outside of Reggie Wayne, but because you ain't gonna let go of Reggie Wayne, one of the best receivers of all time, and you got him as your wide receivers coach. Yeah, you're gonna keep that. But listen, I'm willing to admit, hey, Gus Bradley, for me, he is like the Kirk Cousins of defensive coordinators. It's like he's exceptionally solid. Do you think he's in like the upper echelon of DCs? No, but he's solid. I just would love to see a little more deviation when it comes to how he runs the defense. But regardless, like, this offense is going to be spicy, and I put it there. This defense is going to be bland, but I think they're going to be solid. I really do. We'll talk about the defense when we get there, but before we talk about the offense, I want to give a shout out to today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is currently one of the most premier fantasy betting apps, and they got a best ball tournament with $15 million in cash prizes. So if you sign up at Underdog Fantasy using promo code Broshmo, they will match your first deposit up to $100. Remember, sign up with promo code Broshmo and they will match that first deposit up to $100. And as always, bet responsibly, my friends. But talking about the offense, and we got to start with Anthony Richardson. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to show you all my starters, my projected starters for this offense. And there's a couple areas where I'm like, it could go either or here. But listen, I love Gardner Minshew. I have been an Uncle Rico truther since his rookie season in Jacksonville. I love Uncle Rico. I am Minshew mania all the way. I have a shirt. But I think he could be when it comes to Minshew, solid starter, probably a good, like, if you're looking for a bridge quarterback, that's him. Like, if you're looking for a high-end backup quarterback, that's him. But he's never going to be like a top 12 guy. Like, he just doesn't have the physical tools to do that. But he is just exceptionally solid. With Steichen, how he operates this offense, I think it would be nutty to not give the reins to Anthony Richardson from day one. And you might be like, he may not be ready. I think Steichen could do a very good job of protecting the flaws, mainly when it comes to passing the football. And Anthony Richardson is just, he provides so much upside when you just look at his physical and athletic tools. Like, the dude is, he's like 6'4", 240 or something, right? Ran a 4.4, 440, ridiculous. His whole combine was out the wazoo. This guy's got the athletic and physical tools. Dude's got a huge arm. Like, you could take advantage of those physical and athletic tools right from the get-go. And then just kind of make it where he takes shots. Like, yeah, his accuracy, it ain't where it's supposed to be. But keep in mind, at Florida, it's not like we were talking about Malik Willis, who was a guy that thrived almost exclusively outside of structure. Like, Anthony Richardson, he wanted to make plays from the pocket. Just at times, it didn't work out. Or he decided, hey, you know what? I'm fast as heck. I'm going to go ahead and pick up these yards myself. So, like, while you could still develop him as a passer, and I don't think, like, if you're the Colts, you're like, are you contenders now? I don't think you are. I know some Colts fans, much like my Texans video, are going to be like, this is a 10-win team, man. Blah, 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 blah. I don't think y'all are there. Y'all are very, especially when we're going to go to the defense, look at that secondary. This is a very young team at certain parts for certain aspects. We could even talk about the offensive line in a minute here. So just go ahead, get this guy his starting experience, take your lumps. But golly, man, he is such a weapon. That's why it's kind of hard to gauge where this offense may be, depending on how he develops as a passer, give him that real life game experience. I'm very excited for Anthony Richardson. Now we can talk about the offensive line, because the two big questions are going to be Bernhard Raimann, a guy I was very high on coming out of Central Michigan. Does he take the next step? He had some good games, some bad games last year. Does he take that next step? And then Will Fries, or just don't start him. I don't know who you're going to start in his stead. We'll talk a little bit about more the depth, and I kind of got an eye, but for who I would hopefully want to start if they have a good camp instead, because like Will Fries, he was just bad. He's just bad. He just hasn't been good really ever for this squad. Allowed 20 pressure, made 11 starts last year, allowed 20 pressures and a sack, like 5 penalties. Like I'm just not a fan of Fries. You could say he made some strides as a run blocker last season. It's not enough for me. I'm looking for better. He is, for me, the weak spot on this line. Raimann, I think he showed enough down the stretch to where I feel really good about him going into next season. And then, of course, you got Ryan Kelly, who is just, he's solid. He's solid. He's probably someone who is you're going to want to upgrade from eventually, because he's getting up there in years, but he's just exceptionally solid. You have Braden Smith, who has just been very good through the whole course of his career since coming out of Auburn. And then, of course, Quentin Nelson, who is, you could argue, is he still like a top 5 offensive interior player in the league? He's definitely top 10. Like, he's good as hell. He really, really is. So it comes down to that right guard position for me, and we could go ahead and take a look at other options here in the offensive line. On the interior, Danny Pittner, someone who I really liked coming out of Ball State as a swing tackle, just hasn't been good when played. Is what it is. I hope it ain't him. Emil Ikor, who ended up being a UDFA. I don't know if it was because of an injury red flag or anything. He has got the ideal size, the ideal length, the ideal power. I don't know why he ended up going UDFA. He was someone that was even talked about as a day 2 pick heading into the season, the 2022 season for Alabama. And it just kind of like blew my mind that he just ends up going UDFA. Had to be an injury red flag, but I hope he can challenge for that right guard spot. Looking at other guys like Wesley French was someone they've been, I think they've been developing. He was been on the practice squad for a minute. I say a minute, probably like what, a year or two? Can't remember. Former cat at Western Michigan. But honestly, he might actually just be, yeah. He's only been in the league for 1 year, so he spent the last year on the practice squad. I don't know why I feel like he's been in the league for a hot minute. So you look at that offensive line, and you know what? That's still a quality offensive line. Sucks that Will Fries probably, or Fries, I don't care how to pronounce it. It sucks that he is obviously your worst offensive line player, but at that, it's like he's a below average. Like, he is going to be the constant weak spot. Can you upgrade from him right now? No. You kind of hope some guys challenge that position and they could come in and be just solid, like be at least average and elevate that line. But I expect that line to be better this season, especially if they can stay healthy. You have one of the best run backs in football, Jonathan Taylor, who struggled at parts because of how ineffective the offensive line was, or in general, the offense when they had Matt Ryan, like, and Sam Ellinger. So yeah, they were predictable in aspects. So he kind of like struggled because of that. On top of that, dealt with injuries. But we know Jonathan Taylor, he is a top 5 running back in the league. Now you have Anthony Richardson. That is scary. Scary. And that doesn't even go into like Isaiah McKenzie, who is a prime like jet sweep guy you can get rolling in motion in this offense and have him be a ball carrier as well. You look at the depth. I used to be high on someone like Zach Moss a few years ago when he was coming out of Utah. That never came to fruition. But you have Deion Jackson there who I don't know why they have him down the depth chart. That's actually interesting. But you have Deion Jackson right here, who played pretty darn solid when injuries crept up. You also have Jake Funk, who is kind of funny, man. I liked him coming out of Maryland. He's another like home run threat guy. But Evan Hall is someone to watch to be involved in this rotation. He really, really is someone to watch out for being involved in the rotation here at running back. Someone who could do it all. He's a return man. He could do it in the passing game. He's a solid runner. He was the easiest, probably, like, you look at his game and be like, look how he tested. Be like, high motor guy, great work ethic. That's a midday 3 pick. Goes in the 5th round. Too easy. But again, a lot of excitement about what this team can do in terms of running the football. But then you look at their receivers. The starters I have listed are Michael Pittman Jr., kind of a no-brainer. Alec Pierce, who had a very solid rookie season, kind of a no-brainer. And then I have Isaiah McKenzie here, just because he's a solid slot. Someone you could also play with in motion, very good after the catch, or I guess after contact. But you also have Josh Downs there, who I really liked coming into the NFL draft last season. Yeah, he's undersized. Yeah, he feels probably like a slot-only prospect. But golly gee willikers, this dude runs his routes to a T. He is a very, very precise, very calculated route runner. He runs the I want to say shiftiest of routes. I almost said the swiftiest of routes, like it's Rick and Morty, but the shiftiest of routes. Very good after the catch as well, and someone who is not afraid to challenge the catch point. Plays much bigger than he actually is. I think he's someone that could get involved in that slot. If we're talking about outside receiver, I mean, you got Alec Pierce, who's got really good size, really good launch speed. You got Michael Pittman, another guy who is more opposed to Pierce, who's a speedy long field threat. You have the big-bodied contested catch guy in Michael Pittman Jr. I remember him coming out of USC where he was like 27 or 28 on contested catches. The guy's hands are insane, and I expect him to be really involved. I'm very excited to see how these guys do. However, it does you also got to kind of question, like, okay, Anthony Richardson, how will he progress as a passer, and how involved can these guys truly be? There's not much depth when it comes to this receiving core. Like Mike Strachan, he was at like Charlotten. I can't recall. It been a few years since, but he's really done nothing. You have Austin Dillon, who played a bit last season for the Colts. To actually pull up, what did he do specifically? I know I had a few solid games, but for the most part, you look at him and he's like, this is a depth receiver through and through. Ended up getting over 200 yards. Okay, not half bad. He was mainly lining up in the... Oh, okay, he split time between the slot and on the outside. So that's good. That's good having that flexibility. I mean, at 6'1", 215, yeah, you better have that flexibility. But yeah, he had a few really solid games to start the season last year. So I like him as a depth option. Really, you're probably looking your starter, or at least your 5. It's Pittman, it's Pierce, it's McKenzie, it's Downs. Those are no brainers. Then you got Dolan. Who's the next guy? Because I mean, Brashad Berryman, I don't think he's going to stick to a roster. I really don't. You look at other guys like Malik Turner, Jawan Winfrey, Cody Case. Cody Case can't even stay healthy. There really aren't guys there. So it's probably Strachan. Yeah, it's probably a safe bet if they keep 6 receivers. Then again, I don't think they necessarily have to because of their tight end situation. You may notice here, we'll jump back to it, I have Mo Alley Cox listed as the starter at tight end. They're going to be going 3 tight ends deep, this team. Like Mo Alley Cox, big body indeed. Good, just huge frame, huge catch radius. He's going to be used a lot in the red zone. But Jelani Woods, probably the guy with the biggest upside of the tight ends here. And I say they go 3 deep. Shoot, they got like 5 solid tight ends on this roster with one guy who has upside, but he's going to be a practice squad dude. But Jelani Woods, huge, moves exceptionally well. This is who you want to take the next step. I think for the most part, it's going to be him and Mo Alley Cox split in time, but we're also going to see a healthy dose of Kyle Granson, who's he's just a wonderful receiving option, a big bodied slot receiver at times as well. If we look how often he played in the slot last season, he was on the slot 52% of the time. So he's your big bodied slot option, which, I mean, you look at Josh Downs, smaller guy, and Isaiah McKenzie, who honestly could play outside as well. So it's like, we don't want to just like peg him as a slot only guy. But looking at the other depth, they got Will Mallory. He could make the roster. I get it. He's kind of built like Kyle Granson. He's got like 10 pounds on him. And I think he's actually a little taller as well. But in terms of what he can do as a receiver, it's just Will Mallory's ball skills kind of suck. I was not the biggest fan of Will Mallory in the draft process. I'm also a Hurricanes fan, so I feel like I could speak on that with confidence. Pharaoh Brown, solid option. I was talking about someone who's probably more of a practice squad developmental prospect. That it's Andrew Ogletree out of Youngstown State last season, I believe. But all in all, this offense, I think, has a chance to be freaking fun. I really, really honestly believe that. At least fun on the ground. We'll see. Anthony Richardson, and this is why, like, going back to my little slide here, I have them listed at 21st. If we want to get down to where I have their offense ranked, I have it 21st, just because so much hinges on Anthony Richardson's development as a passer and how much do we expect to see that next season. In terms of run game, this is going to be like a top 10, top 5 run game in the league. It's just, as a passing game, it kind of brings it down. But let's go ahead and move to the defense. Looking at my starters for the defense, and I know some people are going to be like, oh my gosh, you got them listed as a bottom ranked unit as well. And to be fair, Letterkenny for you. A lot of that hinges on how young and inexperienced the corner position is going to be, with Isaiah Rodgers probably missing the season because of the gambling thing. So Isaiah Rodgers, I'm kind of curious. They still have him listed on the roster. He hasn't been dealt out a suspension yet. So, I mean, we kind of wait and see. But I kind of lean that he is likely gone for the year, which means you're going to be starting 2 of 3 rookies on the outside here in either Julius Brents, Darius Rush, or Jalen Jones. Or you start a UDFA from last year in Dallas Flowers, which I don't think he's more of a depth guy. No Flowers. I mean, we can look at what he exactly did last year. I don't want to discount him just yet, but yeah, only had 175 snaps last season. And I mean, he was. Yeah, no, I think we're looking at the bigger bodied, more monstrous corners here in Julius Brents, who, golly, man, had good testing. He's huge. It's no surprise that Gus Bradley was like, I want me some of that. On top of that, you look at Darius Rush, who, another bigger body guy, phenomenal athlete, But again, you like for me, it's a toss up who starts outside of Julius Brents or Juju Brents, whatever you want to call him now. Because Jalen Jones, not nearly as good as an athlete as Darius Rush, but I think his game's more well put together, at least in terms of upstairs, like as a processor. I think he's more put together right now than Darius Rush, who was wildly inconsistent there at South Carolina, and which kind of like when we saw him at the Senior Bowl, I was just kind of like, he's a hell of a lot more sticky than I recall him being. Because like I watched a lot of South Carolina last year because Cam Smith was a highly sought out prospect. So we saw a bit of Darius Rush, and I was like, he feels like a day 3 guy. And then freaking the Senior Bowl, just kind of like I say he was a day 3 guy. He ends up going to the 5th round. But by the end of my process, I think Darius Rush was like in my top 90 for sure. Top 90 for sure. He was somewhere in the 70 to 80 range. But just because like, he's very physically gifted. He's athletically gifted. It's just, can he put it all together consistently? So maybe Jones gets the notch over him because he might be more pro ready. I guess let's go ahead and take a look specifically at the depth there. So you got, again, Juju Brents. No surprise he went so early. I think for everybody, he was like a top 50 prospect by the end of the process. It would be great if Isaiah Rodgers could play. I don't think he is. I'm not going to act like he is. And then on top of that, outside of those guys, you got Daryl Baker Jr. I believe he was out. Wasn't he out of, I want to say South Alabama. Georgia Southern. I knew it was somewhere around there. So I won't expect too much from him. Kevin Tolliver. I mean, these rookies are the guys we're talking about. And that's why, like, I look at this offense and I'm just like, you can't trust rookies like that. Not every rookie is going to come out and be Tyreek Woolen or Sauce Gardner. Especially these guys who your investment in Julius Brents, 2nd round. Your investment in Darius Rush, 5th round. Your investment in Jalen Jones, 7th round. It's not fair to have those expectations. I think it's a lot more fair to be like, we're gonna see these corners struggle at bits during the season. Going to the safety position, you have Julian Blackmon, who split time in the slot, I think, I believe last year because Kenny Moore was a little banged up. Kenny Moore being one of the better slot receivers in the league. I would say he's like a top 10, top 12 slot corner in the NFL. A guy who's just phenomenal run defender and just very good zone coverage player. But you have Julian Blackmon, someone who just loves to play around the box, like who plays with a big head of steam. Who's got good range, but you don't put him back deep because he's kind of a high risk, high reward. He's easy to fake out, man. He will bite on double moves. He'll buy into the quarterback's eye candy. So keeping him around the box, and especially if he's going to throw his body around and kind of be a box defender anyway, I understand why they put him in the slot. You're gonna in dime packages. He's gonna be your dime back as well, which I find very exciting because I want to see more Nick Cross. He was someone I was exceptionally high on coming out of Maryland, a dude that has a great build, phenomenal athlete, incredible range. I would honestly, I'd be willing to put Nick Cross out there ahead of Rodney Thomas, who had a very good season last year as a 7th round pick, playing deep safety. So it's like with Cross, it's like, okay, you know what? But he's a guy with a great build that will throw his body around and he can make stops in the run game. Yeah, coming downhill, he can make plays in the backfield. So like, I get it. I understand. It's fine. I'm not going to let my blinders for the love I had for Nick Cross blind me to Rodney Thomas, who made a lot of plays in coverage last season and played much better than you anticipated from a 7th rounder out of, what was it, Yale, right? Was it Kenny Thomas out of Yale? I said Kenny Thomas. Rodney Thomas? Yeah, it was. Nailed it. Okay. So it's going to be Blackman and it's going to be Cross. I mean, those were two guys who've kind of like, they have their share of blown coverages. Nick Cross, to be fair, he was a rookie. He only saw about 150 snaps, I believe, last season. Julian Blackman, a guy that's been there for the last 3 years. I don't see him getting extended. And if so, I would want at a lower price. Like, he had a banger rookie season. I believe it was a rookie season. But since then, like, he, again, high risk, high reward, just style. And last couple of seasons come up more as blown coverages. So that'll be interesting to see. Who else is on this depth chart? They got Henry Blackman. He's a good special teamer. And honestly, I guess that's really all to talk about. Tony Brown, name sounds familiar. Not West Virginia. What was it? Oh, Alabama? Okay, I can't tell you much about Tony Brown. I can't tell you much about him. I was like, that sounds familiar, but it does not. So, but I mean, it's Kenny Moore. When healthy, he's your nickel guy. If he gets banged up, they're going to put Julian Blackman there. Now, let's talk about the front seven, because that's where this defense is a lot better and why they probably should be a top 20 defense. But again, all that youth in the secondary kind of brings them down a little, down to earth a bit. So with let's start with the linebackers. They got one of the best linebackers in football in Shaq Leonard. They really do. He might not be the fastest, he may not be the quickest, but he's never out of position. He knows his limitations. And I say limitations, he's just not a high-end athlete. It's not that. But he understands how to play his assignments, when to pass guys off, and he is shown to make splash plays in coverage. On top of that, one of the most sure tacklers, one of the most violent tacklers. This guy gets after it. Forced fumbles, kind of ridiculous. But the guys back there, a big reason why they don't bring back Bobby Okereke. One reason is Zaire Franklin, who's kind of on the up and up. Someone who has been very, very impressive. And kind of underrated at this point. He brings a lot of range, a lot of speed. He attacks the run game exceptionally well. I want to pull up his snaps. Over 1,000 snaps last season. He had 58 stops. Kind of ridiculous. But going to the depth on this squad at linebacker, EJ Speed, who's kind of really has been a big special teamer as a gunner, because I mean, another guy who has really good range, really good athlete. But when he saw playing time last season, he had over 300 snaps. He was hella good. So, oh man, it doesn't even go into JoJo Doman, who a bit undersized for the linebacker position, but also another good athlete who they got as a UDFA out of Nebraska. I almost said Wisconsin. I know it's one of those red-white teams. So I kind of like what they got going there. Other guys, Grant Stewart, I believe, was out of Wake. I can't recall originally. Wasn't this guy originally in Denver? No, out of Oh, no, I'm thinking a different cat. Okay, so look at that. Undersized as well. 5'11", 230. Whew. So I can't actually tell you much about Grant Stewart, unfortunately. Cameron McGrone, though, I do recall him from New England, as he dealt with injuries, but another guy who was a very solid athlete that shows good sideline to sideline speed, but he's probably more so going to be a special teamer if he makes this squad. But man, a lot of excitement with that linebacker position, and we're gonna reel it back a little bit here when we talk about the actual defensive front, because like I said, this team, they want their front four to win. Kwity Paye has kind of been the same player since his rookie season. I would love to see some development when it comes to Kwity Paye, and hopefully we will see that. They bring in Samson Ibukam, who just a stupid high motor individual that knows how to get after it. They just don't have an elite pass rusher. They just don't. They're going to be relying on just how they scheme up this front four, whether like with slants, stunts, loops, and stuff of that nature. Which that's great. Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner are like, yeah, we could get behind that because they're really good pass rushers. They really, really are. They also have some good depth there on the defensive interior. As Eric Johnson was someone I really liked out of Missouri State. I'm hoping he has developed well to get maybe involved in that rotation. Taven Bryant's more of a depth guy. I don't really need to talk about him. But then they drafted in the 4th round someone who I had a first-round grade on in Adetomiwa Adebawore, baby. This dude. Everyone and their mom talking about freaking Kalijah Cansey. And I'm here talking about Adetomiwa because he came in. They were about the same height, same size, so undersized. They were in the 0 to 10 percentile in height, except for Kalijah Cansey and his 31.5-inch arms couldn't compare to the freaking 34-inch arms of Adetomiwa. He even tested better than Kalijah Cansey. To be fair, though, Cansey's production was a whole lot better. But Adetomiwa, who was someone who mainly played on the edge, is going to get a chance to kind of be a penetrated 3-tech here, or maybe even someone that they probably line up outside the tackle. Like, you could be versatile with him. Yeah, I think you really can. So I'm very excited to see how he gets involved with this defense. You have Deo Odeyingbo, who is another guy who's got this versatile body type. And I'm kind of eager because we know he kind of had to redshirt his rookie season to some degree. He didn't really play till I think the back end. So last year was kind of the first year we got a good look of him. And I thought there were some encouraging signs there. I would say more so than Kwity Paye. I believe... I mean, ultimately, Kwity Paye had a slightly better win rate, but slightly. So those are two guys that they got from the 2021 NFL draft class that you're hoping take that next step. So can they? Tyquan Lewis, good depth at this point. And then, I don't know, man. I don't think Titus Leo makes the roster. He's probably a practice squad guy. And then you got Jannard Avery, who's kind of a tweener. He's like a rush linebacker. So all in all, when I look at this defense, oh, that's the offense. There we go. The question is, who steps up at corner if Isaiah Rodgers misses the year, which sucks. Isaiah Rodgers, when on the field, is a very good corner. Really. I'd be willing to bet he's like a mid cornerback 1 to high end cornerback 2. That's kind of where I'm at with Isaiah Rodgers. So it really sucks. And that's what brings down this defense ultimately for me. But I guess without further ado, let's get into my predictions for the Colts in 2023. So currently Vegas have the Colts over and under win total at 6.5. I wouldn't bet the under on that, even though I currently have them at 5-12. Keep in mind, when I put this deep dive series together, I have to settle on who wins and who loses and come together with the draft order. And I have like 7 teams with 5-12 records, even though, quite frankly, the next 2 teams I have in this deep dive series, if I was doing this by a power ranking, I'd probably have the Colts ahead of them because I think the Colts got a lot of promise. It's a first-year coach. It's a young team. Literally, the secondary is littered. The corner positions could be littered with rookies. I'm not wild about Gus Bradley, though. I think he's a fine DC. I imagine the comment section, they're going to have their run with that. They do have one of the easier schedules, so it's like, I don't know. It's tough. If I had to put money on it, I imagine they would have. I would probably bet them over 6 wins. I think this is a team that, depending on how Anthony Richardson develops through the season, could be a 7 to 8 win team. But with a couple of question marks at on the offensive line, with Anthony Richardson being a big question mark in terms of the passing game, with them literally starting rookies at the corner positions. It's hard to really have this team too far up in my rankings, but again, we do this by a draft order. So I do think they're going to be one of the bottom half teams, and I think that's fair. I think everyone should expect that. But going forward, like, this is going to be like a 1 year turnaround wouldn't surprise me. It really won't. I say 1 year turnaround, technically 2 years, because last year was kind of a down year for them, but I could really see them being legit contenders with Anthony Richardson after year one, similar to what we saw with Lamar Jackson, who I believe was MVP the following season. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. But yeah, let's go ahead by game. I have them at 2-4 in the division, and I imagine those are 2 losses to the Jags, and then they probably either split with the Texans and the Titans, or have Titans winning 2 on them. Not quite sure, but Jags, I got them winning the opener. They get the Texans. Okay, so they get 1 on the Texans. So maybe they won both games against the Texans, or maybe they split. I don't know. Who knows? We'll figure it out. But then they get the Ravens. In my Texans video, I had someone who like, the Ravens aren't a good defense anymore. It's like, yo, yeah, that's a very well coached team, and they have talent that is going into like year 2 of them being under the system. Year 2 or more, like that's a good squad. Calm down. I do have the Rams getting 1 on them. The Rams are going to be, I think, could be a sneaky good team. Does that mean I think they're a playoff contender? No, I still think like that defense is awful, but the offense still has a considerable amount of firepower, especially if Matthew Stafford could bounce back after last season. Let's see. They get the Tennessee Titans in week 5. They get the Jags, so I do have the Jags getting 2 wins on them. The Browns are just hard to project for anybody. I think they're probably the most difficult team to project because the amount of outcomes that with Deshaun Watson. Will he bounce back? He used to be a borderline elite level quarterback. Will we see that? The Saints, I feel like, will stabilize. They got a game in Germany prior to their bye against the Patriots. I got them getting a win over the Panthers. They go into the bye, and coming out of the bye, they get the Buccaneers, who at quarterback is just probably just awful. I can't imagine Baker being that good. So I have the Titans winning 2 on them. So I have them winning both games against the Texans. I mean, honestly, I think when it's all said and done, they probably split between the Titans and the Texans. They get the Bengals, so that kind of sucks. They have to get the AFC North, probably the toughest division in the AFC. I mean, it means they're going to get the Steelers later on here. They get in the Falcons. I mean, there's a world I can see the Colts kind of being the Falcons of last year, where the Falcons were insanely competitive. The Raiders, as we'll see them in the next few days, they're a team that technically are ranked ahead of the Colts in the draft order, but I do think they're a worse. If this was a power ranking, I'd have the Colts ahead of the Raiders. They get the Steelers here, like I said, the AFC North. That's going to be a toughie. Looking at their actual statistics: 4-5 against losing teams, 1-7 against winning teams. Got them having 3 wins at home, but they have like the 4th easiest schedule after doing my projections. So there is that. I don't know. You let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Colt love, which is fair, man. There's a lot to be excited about this team. I just don't know. I just don't think this year just yet. I really do think they could end up like a team like the Atlanta Falcons, who, last year, I want to say they went 7-10. Yeah, 7-10. I could see the Colts doing that as well. I'm very excited about the coaching staff offensively. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. That's it for the video. Go ahead, do the YouTube thing. These take a bunch of time, bunch of work. So please support the video, support the channel. I will continue to pump out my 2024 NFL draft rankings, preseason rankings. So check those out if you want a good watch list of players before the season. But as always, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.